If you were an in-person art student of mine here at St. Joseph High School, we'd most likely use kiln fire clay for sculpture. Kiln fire clay is fairly soft. It's used with water and slip, and it air dries. So one of the challenges is keeping it from drying out. But when the sculpture is finished, the clay air dries naturally, and then it has to be fired in a kiln, which you can kind of see behind me in the kiln room. Here's a closer look at the kiln. It's basically like a giant oven for clay, but it gets really hot, over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And the greenware, it's called, that's clay that has been air dried, goes inside the kiln, and then it's fired for up to 8 hours, and then it takes about 8 hours to cool the room. But that's not a practical material to use at home. And so at home, what I encourage you to use for sculpture is modeling clay. So modeling clay comes in a lot of different colors, and it's usually sold in 1 pound packages. And you can buy it at stores like Michael's, Walmart. Of course, you can order it on Amazon. It's fairly stiff, but the longer you hold it in your hand, the softer it gets, because the heat from your hands will soften the clay. And then it can be used much the same way as kiln fire clay, meaning you can use simple sculpting tools like a butter knife. You can use even a paring knife to cut, a fork even for texturizing or sculpting. A bamboo skewer is a terrific tool to use for shaping, forming, even making texture. Of course, there's kind of like official clay sculpting tools like needle tools, or you can see at the end of this one, it has a kind of a scoop. Here's a wooden sculpting tool that's specially made for working with clay. And when you're sculpting with this modeling clay, you'll find, like I said, that it operates much the same way as kiln fire clay, in that you can sculpt it with the tools that you might find around the house. You, of course, can sculpt it with your hand. And the nice thing about modeling clay compared to kiln fire clay is that it is a little bit stiffer, so it's going to hold its shape. And you don't need to use water with it, but you can still smooth it out. It won't dry out on you, which is probably the most practical characteristic of it for home use. But yet you can still do things like stamping. A variety of tools can be used to sculpt with clay, including your hands, of course. And as I already mentioned, the longer you knead the clay and hold it in your hands, the softer it will become, because the heat from your hands will soften the modeling clay. But the modeling clay will not dry out, which is what makes it such a versatile sculpting medium, especially for home sculpting. Kitchen utensils like spoons can be used to sculpt with modeling clay. Popsicle sticks are great tools if you don't have store-bought wooden sculpting tools. Even the end of a paintbrush can be used to add texture. Maybe you have some rubber stamps at home that you could stamp into the clay to create texture, or you could even find just objects from around the house, even like the bottom of a shoe could create texture in clay. You could use something like a bamboo skewer to make tiny little depressions in the clay for texture, or even the blunt end perhaps. See what you can find around the house that you could use to just dig, score, sculpt texture into the modeling clay. Okay, so you're going to have to go out and find just a 1 pound package of modeling clay locally, or you can order it online. But reach out to me if you're having a hard time acquiring that material, but I think you'll do just fine with that. And that will enable you to complete the sculpture project at home without worrying about the clay drying out. And then you'll take photos of the project when you're all finished, and then after that you can do what you want with that clay. It can be reused for another sculpture project. Okay, so that's the modeling clay.